Computer. Hey guys, this is Flashbacks, the Flash Rewatch podcast. I'm Alex, and today I'm joined by our constant co-host now,
Will.
and we're just going to go ahead and get into this episode. It's kind of late, guys. You can kind of tell by the background I got back here. It's a little dark. I got the disco lights, like you remember that back in the day. We're actually going to go back, and I'm going to ask you really quick what your, because we went to York Tech together. Probably shouldn't have said whatever. I mentioned York Tech before, but
Yeah,
what was your what's your experience with the Flash? Were you into Arrow before? Do you like remember when you got into that whole thing?
Yes, absolutely. Well, as I sit here with my also lovely backdrop of this gas station, I it's nice to be able to reflect on these things. No, so around the time I started going to York Tech was actually when this first season started airing. And I had previously been a fan of Arrow beforehand, which I believe the first two seasons of Arrow had already aired at this point, and The Flash and Arrow was starting to air concurrently, and it was like one of the first times we've really seen this kind of world building and crossovers between TV shows. It's like when it, kind of started really.
Right.
And this was right at the peak of, oh, the Avengers just came out and like other stuff like that that Marvel was doing, whereas DC had such a cool, I guess, like TV run for a while. That
Yeah.
was pretty cool.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
we developed so many friendships across campus and everything with that. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Definitely. I remember I think I kind of mentioned this before, but I remember when I went there, I don't know if you know Dylan or not. I can mention him on here, excuse me, on my other stuff. Dylan Maldonado. Do you remember him?
Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, and I was getting him into Arrow, I think back in like maybe 2013. It was really early on. And I started watching it at first. I'm like, because I was a Smallville fan, I was like, man, I don't know about this new show. They should have just had it spin off from Smallville. They already had a perfectly good Green Arrow on this. Why are they doing this new guy? And then I watched the show. I was like, oh, now I get it, kind of thing. And then
Yeah,
like,
it's
that
a
whole thing.
completely different take. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a lot darker. You can definitely see why they didn't go with Justin Hartley in that. Can you imagine Justin Hartley
Yes.
being in that version?
No, they would have had to make it a lot more campy based on how the way they did Smallville for sure. Oh man.
Yeah,
Stephen
man.
Amell was perfect for that role. As far as I'm concerned, even though they did a different take of Oliver Queen at the time because they were rebranding the character,
Hmm.
he is the definitive Green Arrow. Like
Yeah.
it just
What
is.
What's funny is that sorry if you hear my notifications in the background. It's annoying, whatever. But they actually that's good. I'm gonna turn that off. But they in Smallville they brought that version of Green Arrow in because they couldn't have Batman. And I
Yep.
feel like the creators of Arrow brought that version of Arrow in where he's basically just, I know before we started recording, we were talking briefly, just I was making a joke about Ra's al Ghul or Ra's al Ghul from
Yeah.
Batman Begins. It's definitely early on in those early seasons. They even directly quote the Nolan movies. So
Yep.
yeah, that was one of the things.
Arrow is Arrow is Batman,
Yeah.
just not Batman.
Yeah,
It is. I think everybody knows it and has acknowledged it at this point. But
exactly.
it's really cool because it has given the character of Oliver Queen and that whole universe like not only just original characters that are in the comics now that can go along with them like your Felicities and Diggles and characters like that that weren't really a part of any of that lore beforehand. So
Yeah.
it's nice.
Yeah, and then just going back, like circling back to what I was talking about earlier with the whole Arrow thing, I remember like it was almost like appointment television at the time.
Yep.
I remember watching it and then getting my friend Dylan into it, and at first he was kind of being like, "What's up with the like his deep voice, like you failed this city, blah blah." Like he was just giving them crap, and that was kind of funny. But like over time, he started really getting into it too. And it was one of those things. I had Grant on the first episode, and we were talking about just we had like a viewing party over at my dad's where we watched the first episode. It was a big deal, and I feel like people now probably wouldn't appreciate it as much because back then it was like a desert. Like you said earlier, like you had like the Avengers and stuff, but that was basically it. I mean, you had like a few
Yeah.
sporadic shows here and there. You had Agents of Shield, which I know got better later, but let's be honest, that first
Yeah.
season was kind of rough. I stopped watching after episode 3, I think. But yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was a different time, and like now people that weren't there won't get it, I think, because everything now, especially if it drops on a streaming service, it's like 6 episodes and they're all like 30 minutes, and normally they all drop all at the same time with like the case of Netflix.
Right.
Whereas with the Arrowverse, when that was airing at its peak, when I was still watching at the time,
Mhm.
it was must see television, because if I didn't watch what happened on the Arrow at the time, I wouldn't know what happened on Flash, and so on and so forth with the crossovers. Plus, going to school each day, and like that was pretty much all that any of us talked about back then. There's a
Right.
lot of
And I know just we're gonna get into the episode, I promise, guys, but I think just going into the we're gonna go into the episode, like the brief description of it. This comes from Rotten Tomatoes. The episode is called Things You Can't Outrun. And then we'll kind of go into it, and then after this we'll decide if it's like a good description or not. There's some other podcasts that do this too. I think it's like a cool format to see, like, we can fill in spots that maybe they forgot in their brief description. But yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and go into that now. Barry and the
cool.
team track the Mist, a dangerous new metahuman with toxic gas powers. Joe decides to visit Henry in jail. Eddie and Iris continue to conceal their relationship. Think that was good description? Do you think that they left
Yeah,
anything
those
out?
are those are the three big plot points, I think, with this episode.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I was looking at just a list of every episode of the first season earlier in preparation while we're talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
And number one, the season, it doesn't really have any bad episodes as a whole. I
Mm-hmm.
think I think this is one of those episodes for me that wasn't nearly as good as a lot of the others, and a lot of the stuff that happened didn't really serve or like further the plot in any way.
Yeah, I could see that. I know this is one of the things, just this is the first one that we're covering that I didn't have an original review of back in the day because I covered the first 2 episodes. Before that, I was covering the old Arrow episodes. Like I would watch it and then straight after do like a YouTube live thing where I like reviewed it just by myself and then posted it. And that seemed to
Yeah.
like get some viewers. But like this is the first episode basically that I don't have like an old video of me from the past to like refer to and be like, what did
Yeah.
past me think about this, and it's like, so we're
Yeah.
kind of in the dark right now, feeling our way around.
Yes.
But I do remember that this particular actor, I don't know if do you recognize him? Do you know him from anything else?
Anthony Carrigan.
Yeah.
Yes. So he has obviously played the Mist on here.
Mm-hmm.
He's very big on an HBO show that I love called Barry.
It's a good
But
show.
he's also played Victor Zsasz on Gotham, and he was just recently cast in Superman Legacy as Metamorpho, which will be
Yeah.
his third DC role. Yeah.
I remember just like the memory I had was I think I got confused. Like there was somebody that said online that he was gonna be Zaz in this. Like there was
Mhm.
some, how the internet rumors work back then. Like they were trying to say that Arrow and Gotham were tied into the same universe because of
Yep.
some little background detail that really didn't mean anything, like at the
Hmm.
end of the day.
I
But
remember that.
yeah, like that was
When I was
weird.
watching it today, like I had a vague memory. It might have even been me and you that had talked about it back in the day, but like he was just Victor Zsasz on this. Why is it was very confusing at the time.
Yeah, multiverse wasn't as much of a thing, I guess, back then.
Mhm.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it was interesting. I think I prefer him more as Zaz or as his character. I definitely prefer his character on Barry. That he does great things
Yes.
on there. He's
Oh,
hilarious.
he's hilarious in it.
But
There's
yeah.
some,
Speaking of the last episode, me and Amanda actually reviewed that one, and I think that I'm noticing like a pattern, and I think it's going to change later. But like, I
Mhm.
liked his villain a little bit more than the last one with Multiplex, where it was just a dude, like where his backstory with his wife that he had to bury was more interesting than the actual
Yes.
dude himself. And so
Hmm.
I'm noticing this overall pattern where, like, obviously the overarching villain is Thawne. I mean, like, this is a rewatch podcast, guys. I'm going to assume that you
Yes.
watched this before watching this thing, but
At the time, we did
yeah.
not know that though.
Did you?
At the time, oh man,
Who
I
did you
remember
think
the
it was?
anticipation leading up. At the time, who we thought Reverse Flash was.
Yeah,
Um, well, obviously, I knew there was something weird going on with Wells, but at the time, I wasn't thinking, okay, he's definitely Thawne. I think, much like most people online, we thought that Eddie was Thawne at that point,
yeah, which is funny.
just because the last name.
Yeah, and I was telling Amanda that if you look at Eddie, he kind of does, like, he looks obviously kind of like the comic book Reverse Flash, but also if you really look at him, he kind of looks like comic book Barry Allen.
Yep,
Yeah.
a lot actually.
Yeah, with
It's
the
a
blonde
weird
hair.
parallel for sure.
Yeah. And he's like really likable. Like, I forgot how likable his character is. And I was telling Amanda yesterday, I'm like, maybe just because I wanted back then, now I'm like, I like them together, I guess. But back then I was like, I really wanted Iris and Barry to be together because she was more like,
Yes.
they did something weird with her character. I've noticed where, like, does she feel like a different person in these episodes to you?
Oh yeah, for sure. No, it's. I thought that she was a little more likable earlier on in the series before later on. I think they kind of ran out of things to do with her as a character towards the end. But,
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know. I always personally I liked Patty from season two. That
Yes.
was always my favorite love interest for Barry.
You see, this is why he's my permanent co-host on this. Is because me and him are like lockstep with that. Like, same
Yes.
same thing. Like that meme where they got the two hands
Yep.
like this together. Us right there. Yeah, perfect. But
Yep.
yeah,
I
I
know that character had to leave the show eventually because of the other creepy stuff that was going on behind the scenes. But yeah,
wait, what creepy stuff?
but Andrew Kreisberg,
Oh
I
yeah,
believe
yeah, yeah, yeah,
the yeah
yeah. She went on to better things though. She was on the boys after that, so you
yep
know,
exactly, which
yeah.
is a much better show. Yes, I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah. I love the Flash. For the record, guys, like, obviously, like, look in the background. I have that Grant Gustin right there. I'm gonna actually meet him. I try not to date these, but I am gonna actually meet him this coming weekend. So that's gonna be really great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be wearing in the corner over here. I have the Green Arrow costume. I'm gonna obviously post
Mhm.
pictures like as an after thing later on. Maybe even this episode, maybe next one. But yeah. So gonna meet him. It's gonna be really fun. Gonna get back to the episode though now, guys. I
Yes, I'll
am
say
all
for
over
the
the
record, I
place.
also love the Flash.
Yeah.
Especially the first two seasons, two of the best like seasons of TV. Period.
Yeah. I can't wait to get to the later seasons, but this is definitely like prime, like golden era, like Flash right here.
Nostalgia.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah,
for sure.
it was interesting. I Amanda actually pointed this out to me, and this is something that maybe we could briefly talk about. I don't know if you noticed this too. Did you notice that they were
Mhm.
trying to kind of set up Caitlin and Barry a little bit?
Yes. So I think what a lot of these Arrowverse shows kind of do at first, they put characters and scenes together and just see who has chemistry and who the fans kind of want to be together, and then push it in that direction, so on and so forth. And I think because Caitlyn, at this point up in the show that we're aware of, was obviously dealing with losing Ronnie, and
Hmm.
there's this new guy who's there, Barry, and he's a nice guy. So she probably felt some things initially, and yeah,
I wouldn't have minded it, honestly.
yeah,
They're cute together. Whatever.
yeah, that would have been cold.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I just can't wait. Just looking, I'm trying not to do this. Like, I'm trying to do this less, but in the future, obviously, that stuff happens. But do you remember when he was going through the Speed Force and you saw all those glimpses at the different, like, future stuff and everything, like with her in the costume, and she didn't
Yep.
end up wearing it. I'm sure they just had her wear that for like a scene. that's like, oh, this is a cool Easter egg. We're probably never going to pay this off, but we're just having this off to the side kind of thing.
Yep, that was episode 23 of the first season, right?
Yeah, and then the Flash
The
Museum.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool too. We actually get to see the Flash Museum later. Again, sorry guys, I know it's Rewatch podcast, so I assume you've seen this show
Yeah,
before watching it. But
for sure.
yeah, I did like. I think that the actor that played the Mist, I think that he made a meal out of what little he was given. I think that he was like menacing and like wasn't really
Yeah.
much on the page, I feel like, but he made the best of it. What do you think?
No, I fully agree. I think he's a really great character actor who can like pop up here and there, and he's a little eccentric and quirky, so he's able to play those roles very, very well. I think another standout in this episode for me at least was Joe. I
Yeah.
think Joe had a lot to do here. Obviously with his conversation with Barry's father in prison and everything, and realizing this guy who was his friend before all this, and he thought, oh, he did kill her, and now he's like, I know you didn't kill her, I'm gonna find a way to get you out of here, so on and so forth. And it's always so great to see John Wesley Shipp pop up
Yes.
in these shows too, man, because without him you wouldn't have this.
Yeah, legacy. But I actually, I think I've taught you about it before, but I actually got the privilege of meeting him. He's probably one of my favorite, like, just like I've met other celebrities or other creators, and they've been great too, but he was just so like gracious and like, patient and everything. And he even got like, one of my friends was wearing a shirt like this, and he was
Yeah.
actually, it was early on in the show's run, so he was just like, he was actually kind of like surprised. He's like, how'd you get that? Like, he's like, that's kind of like the show or something like that. Like, he was actually kind of like interested in it, and he was just really patient and everything. So it's really, it
Yeah.
means the world when you meet somebody like that, because they meet like a million faces, and just the fact that he,
Mhm.
by all accounts, is just such a nice, genuine guy is really great.
Yes, and these first two, well, I guess season and a half, just as Barry's dad, he does a great job in a lot of those scenes, man. You can really feel the bond and just the love that they have for each other.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll on the off seasons get into some of the 90s Flash show. Plays a very different version of Barry there. I still really like that show, but it's a little bit more
Yes.
cheesy. Yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah, I
Well,
definitely
I'm
dig it.
interested because I don't know if you know this, but I've actually never watched the original,
Oh, it's
so
gonna be great then.
that would be something really cool for me to get into.
But yeah, speaking of Joe, I really like that it was established in the last episode that he was going to help him investigate and everything, and I really like
Yep.
seeing that whole part of it. And I was actually going to mention this briefly. There is a Easter egg at the beginning of the episode. Did you catch this?
No.
Okay. They're walking out of a movie theater, and on the marquee it says Blue Devil 2, Hell to Pay. And Blue Devil is a DC Comics character. I don't know if this will, but like that's him right there.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then also, it said under that the Rita Farr story. Do you know who Rita Farr is?
I actually do not.
From maybe you'll recognize this from Doom Patrol.
Oh, okay. Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So that was one of those
Oh,
things. Like for the record, I didn't notice it back in the day, but I kind of noticed how they lingered on it a little bit, and I'm like, sounds familiar, so I just like looked it up right there. I was like, that's really cool when they did that. I know back in Arrow, they were, speaking of Easter eggs, they were really heavily, before I think Warner Brothers like, hey, pump the brakes on this. They were referring heavily to like Ferris Air and like that whole like
Hmm.
Hal Jordan stuff. There's even a flashback where you see like the corner of like somebody's jacket and it says like Jordan on it.
Yep.
So like they were definitely like leaning into that. I kind of wish like even, I assume you guys have seen Arrow too. Have you seen Arrow? Am I
Yeah.
gonna? Okay, cool. I was
Yes.
like, don't let me spoil this for you, but
Arrow is my favorite show out of this.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were gonna have David Ramsey be Green Lantern, and then
Yep.
WB again stuck their head in. They're like, hey, you can't do that, and so they made them back down from it, which I'm still kind of salty about.
Yeah, we haven't had a good live action Green Lantern yet, so
Yeah. Yeah, and then Ryan Reynolds keeps dragging that that movie through the mud. I'm like, bro, come on, man. You're gonna make them never make it now because no one takes it seriously. I mean, we're gonna get one. Speaking of the
yeah,
future, Nathan Fillion. I kind of wish he was playing Hal Jordan and not is he playing Guy Gardner?
he is. I'm
Yeah.
okay with him not playing Hal Jordan just because of his age, obviously. I think having him play Guy Gardner is going to be more of like a like 10 minutes of screen time, kind of like funny character kind of thing.
He's gonna have the bowl cut too, which is kind of like I'm like, okay,
Yes.
I guess James Gunn. All right, man.
You know who would have been the perfect Hal Jordan?
Who?
Chris Pine. Had he not played
Oh,
Steve Trevor in those other ones?
yeah, he would have
It'd
been
be very
great.
similar to his Captain Kirk that he plays in the Star Trek films.
That would have been
He would have been
pretty
really
good.
good Hal Jordan.
Well, I mean, you could also do because Nathan Fillion has played Hal Jordan before. I think he did in one of those animated movies. He could do because
Yeah, he
like
did.
they've done Hal Jordan with like the gray in his temples and everything. You could always do an older one, but like I don't know, just freaking make what's his name? Freaking make John Stewart. Like that's what everybody wants. Just do that.
Yep. The rumor is they're going to do a Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart TV show together
Yeah. You can tell we really
for
like
like
the
Max or whatever.
episode. You can tell we really like the episode by how much we're talking about it.
Nothing happens. Eddie and Iris are dating. So
Yeah, some funny joke. I did
yay.
like that. I did like the whole thing. It's like, oh, I'm glad you're taking this well. It's like I'm not like by my gun. I mean, this would be a very different conversation. This is what
Different
Joe
conversation.
says to him. It's
Yeah.
hilarious.
And you could tell that throughout all that, Joe is really just dealing with the loss of his partner, and
Yeah,
she would rather hurt his daughter not be around someone like him.
yeah.
If that makes sense.
And then a lot of it, speaking of like the emotional part of it, a lot of this episode is flashbacks. And I thought that stuff was really effective with like Ronnie
Yes.
and that whole thing. And I forgot that I didn't forget, but it was kind of cool that the other Amel, like the two Amels
Yeah.
were in like the show for a little bit. Like he did good. Like I remember he used to be like a thing for a while. Like Ronnie Amel was in
Hmm.
not Ron. What's the guy's name?
Robbie.
Robbie.
Robbie Emmett.
Robbie Ronnie.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Was in like a bunch of things back around this time.
Yep. Supposedly him and Stephen Amell are still making a sequel to that Code 8 movie that was on Netflix.
Who cares, man?
And so that's going to come out again too. But yeah, no, I thought he did really good in the role of Firestorm. So I wish they would have kept him around
Yeah.
for more of it. But
Yeah.
for their own reasons and his schedule at the time, they had to swap him out. So
I
we'll
like
see.
the guy that they replaced him with, Jack. So I thought that guy was really
Yep.
good. Yeah.
Franz Drama. Yeah, before he had done The Flash, he was in this movie with John Boyega called Attack the Block,
I
directed
need to
by
still
Joe
watch
Cornish.
that.
Yeah, that was a really good one.
Yeah.
Very, very good one. Yeah.
Cool.
But also the professor that's tied to Firestorm as well, played by Victor Garber.
Legally
He's
Blonde.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I know him from. Sorry, guys.
Yep.
But yeah, I remember watching that like after the fact. I'm like, hey, that's Professor Stein right there. My dad's like, what? I'm like, oh, then never mind. It's a superhero show.
Legally Blonde, Dad. Jeez.
Yeah, come on. But yeah, I'm trying to look and see if I have anything else or if that's about. I know that they did
Yeah,
more like teasing stuff with that whole Thon thing, but other than
Mhm.
that, like it was just kind of like you said, like not really much happened in this episode.
Yeah, it didn't move the plot forward much at all. And like it's not that it's a bad episode. It's just I know for a fact that the stuff we have coming,
Yes.
like the man in the yellow suit and all this other stuff, like there's so much more to get into. Yeah, this one was just kind of like, okay, it's the third week of this new show being out. It's all right. At least Arrow is still going on too. So
Yeah, because that was the thing.
because we had
like,
just found out that Sarah Lance died
oh fuck, that was around this
right
time,
before this
wasn't it?
one. Yep.
I was so pissed off then too, man. That was when I started being like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, she's my favorite too.
Honestly,
Yeah.
like I told you, I'm rewatching all the shows right now. So I've been watching them like the same way we did back then, like in order of what day they came out. And so it's given me a lot more perspective as well. And yeah, she was definitely the best female character on Arrow as well. I wish they would have kept her around more for
I
some of
do,
that. But Legends of Tomorrow was great. So
mhm. I do like what they ended up doing with her. I like that without going too into spoilers for another show that we're not revealing. That
yes.
like she I know something about her, like she over time started being less Sarah Lance and more just Katie Lotz, basically, like, or how I assume Katie
Hmm.
Lotz acts outside of there. Like she just turned into that actress. And yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
my wife is making noise in the background. But
It's
anyway,
okay. That's what they do.
yeah. But yeah, like speaking of the man in the yellow suit, I'm gonna have actually me and you behind the scenes guys. We're gonna have one of my buddies, Ben from Superhero Stuff You Should Know. They mentioned me a lot on their podcast. I've been on there a few times. We're gonna have him guest on because he asked to be on that episode. So that'd be fun having like a third person on just to kind of, especially
Yes.
for such a pivotal episode like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that'd be a lot of fun. I know that I've been watching a lot of, I think it's probably because of the algorithm. I've been watching a lot of like flash edits recently on like YouTube. I think I've
Yeah.
sent you some too, like just some of
Yeah.
the little things like that. But yeah, this was a fun episode. We're definitely going to get into, it might be a little bit of a shorter one. We'll get into the heart, humor, and spectacle. I think that the heart in this episode obviously was the flashbacks, like the whole like dealing with the loss of like Ronnie, her being able, Caitlin being able to go down to the lower part of the lab and see like that whole particle accelerator area and being able to kind of push
Yeah.
past it. That was a big part. And then I think the humor obviously was that scene I mentioned earlier with the whole like, oh, if I had my gun, this would be a different conversation kind of
Yeah.
thing. And also the heart, just going back briefly, was that part at the end where I forgot his name. Henry is talking to Barry about his mom and everything. Like that actually got me teared up a little bit. Like talking
Yeah.
about like you didn't walk, like you ran to your mom because you had something to run to, kind of thing. I thought
Yep.
that was really impactful. And then the spectacle was I think they did a really good job with the poison gas. Like when they took out the judge, like this guy is taking out like the mob that basically killed, like had him put all the blame on him and had him killed, and then like the judge too, like that's his mission. We forgot to mention that earlier. The plot description didn't
Yeah.
really mention it either, but whatever.
Yeah.
And so like that was the spectacle. Seeing that was really cool, and seeing Barry find clever ways to kind of like run to the point where like that he basically just tired the mist out was kind of cool. What were
Yeah.
your three things?
So we say for this is for
Heart,
humor, heart,
humor, and spectacle.
humor, spectacle. So obviously heart. I think the biggest thing that really pulled at it for me was I've always loved, like I said earlier, Joe and Henry's scenes that they have together and their kind of
Mm-hmm.
relationship. And so seeing him realize, like I said, this friend that I've, thought maybe did do this thing all this time, really didn't do it, and saying he was gonna, finally help him get out, was a really nice thing.
Yeah.
As far as humor, I agree with you. I was rolling whenever Joe finally found out about that. I forget what they were. Cisco had some one-liners earlier in the episode too, like towards the beginning, but
Oh yeah.
he's always gonna have those. Um, and then as far as spectacle, around this time, the CGI wasn't the as good as it is now. Sometimes, of course, some of the missed stuff, it didn't look super great, but I have to remember too, it was a CW TV show in its first season and all this stuff, and they
Yeah,
definitely used the budget a lot more later, where some of the effects look a lot better.
definitely.
I would say.
Oh, the one other thing with that scene between him and like Joe that was really cool was that like he's like, it doesn't matter that you didn't believe me, but like you basically believed my son and everything, and that kind
Hmm.
of that whole thing was really nice. I thought I would just say that because that was just like really poignant thing. And do you think that he knew, like there's that moment where like Barry is taking down like, or he's helping Joe, and like there's that moment he looks over and like
And then he
Henry
blurs his face.
Henry's kind of looking at him like either he's having a traumatic flashback to when like another blur was running around and his wife is dead, or like there's like he knows it's his son to an extent.
Mhm.
Because
There's a
otherwise,
part of me that, yeah, there's a part of me that thought, I've always thought really, especially since this moment, that Henry kind of always knew,
yeah,
but just never really acknowledged it until he found out. Because it's so funny because, you know, being in there and probably hearing about this blur and all this stuff,
mm-hmm.
um, you know, you think a lot of things, but knowing his son, I feel like you can see very much so in those some of those moments that he knows that his son's a hero.
Yeah. And the whole thing with like at the end where I mean it could go either way, maybe about like just solving the whole murder thing, the whole thing about having something to run to and everything, like that speech means a lot more if you think that he knows that he's the Flash, basically.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I fully agree. That's the thing. This season and next season do better than any of the seasons with really letting you see the different character relationships and dynamics and how important they were. They nail all the emotional notes,
Mm-hmm.
especially Barry and Joe's relationship, which
Yeah.
is really great. You know, his father's been locked up, but you can tell, especially over those first two seasons, what Joe still means to him, and you know that even though he's not his, he is his son. You know,
Yeah,
so
yeah. It's the whole Yondu thing, right?
yeah, Mary Poppins, y'all.
Yeah, yeah. Well, not that line, but yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, it's really great. I know that we'll get obviously more into Thawne as it goes on, and how this version of Thawne is different than the ones we encounter later in the show. That
yep.
I kind of mentioned in the previous episode, but this one, because of, and I'm going to stay as vague because I do want to go full on later, but because of certain things that happen to him, he is more emotionally attached and almost parentally so to like this version, like Barry Allen kind of thing, which is kind
Yeah.
of an interesting dynamic for an antagonist to have and a unique twist.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I fully agree on that. And I think one of the things that set the show apart, especially in its first and second season, is so I think Arrow has the better action. I think Arrow has the
Mm-hmm.
better like practical things. Arrow can be a quicker, easier watch
Yeah.
sometimes. But I think the Flash in these first two seasons nailed the acting part more than anything,
Yeah.
especially Tom Cavanaugh,
Oh
who I
yeah.
don't think is talked about enough for like over the course of this whole show, how freaking amazing he was at every role he played.
Yeah. And that's the thing with all the different versions, and we'll get into the other Harrisons later. But
Yeah.
there's one scene. I promise it's the last future spoiler I'm gonna do for this one. But there's one scene, I don't know if you've seen it, where like he's going through each version he's done of the different wells, like, and they're all like dying basically, and you just see
Yep.
the range of the different, because like seeing him side to side like that, you see like how different each of them are. He's not just playing the same dude every time, like they're different in like very significant ways, either how he talks, his cadence means the same thing as talk, whatever, and
Yep.
like that whole thing, like, or just how he generally like acts, like it's, he is definitely underrated, and he can play more than a villain, like he definitely has more layers and should be in more things. I know that, have you seen the recent thing about him wanting to do a spin-off show with the just the Reverse Flash, about like maybe him having some sort of redemption or something like that?
I have not actually. Tell me about that.
It's kind of vague, and he was just talking about maybe having like a story where like Reverse Flash gets with somebody and then kind of like it complicates his whole like hatred for Barry Allen and everything. And they kind of, from what I've heard, they kind of do this to, or what I can kind of loosely remember, they kind of do this later on where they try to redeem the Reverse Flash a little bit. and like
Yeah.
how does that complicate it if like he has somebody else in there and that kind of thing. We'll definitely go. I'll look it up next episode, and we can kind of go more into his whole pitch. But that's loosely kind of what I remember. It was
Yeah.
very vague. It was just kind of like off the top of his head, kind of thing. But yeah. Yeah. But yeah, this is unless you had anything else, I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up.
Yes. This episode was a dud.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Yeah, it is what it is. Oh, I forgot to do lightning bolts in the last one. Oh well. For this one I'd probably give it like I'm gonna be generous and give it probably like 2.5 out of 5 like lightning bolts. Like it's definitely not the worst, but it wasn't the best either. It's definitely like a setup episode, I feel like.
I think I will also agree with you. 2.5 to 3.
Yeah.
Like I said, because none of the episodes are bad.
Yeah.
This one just didn't have a purpose. It didn't feel. I feel like a filler episode.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have like 20, 23 episodes. You're gonna have some that are filler. Like it's just
Yep.
a product of
Not
that.
just that, but 23 episodes of 40 plus minutes each week, like old school TV.
Yeah.
That's the
Anyway,
crazy part is we've seen these characters more than we ever saw like the Avengers on the movie screen and stuff, just because of how many episodes and how many minutes were actually in these compared to the new shows where they're like 6 episodes, 30 minutes each.
well, I mean, we even see like how that's kind of a flawed system too with some of those
Yep.
Disney Plus series where they don't know how to just have it be a really streamlined story, and there's just all this stuff that makes you almost want to turn the TV off when you watch it just because it kind of drags and
Yep.
everything. But yeah, it's one of those things where like WandaVision was really good. This other stuff I've tried with Secret Invasion and I just gotta give it another
Mm.
shot, but I'm just like, I just don't care. Like I'm like, I'll pick this stuff up
Yep.
eventually, but there's just too much stuff they keep throwing out and it's getting
Yeah.
exhausting.
I fully agree. Like some of it is like, man, this is some of the best acting I've ever seen in Marvel. And then the other parts are like, I wish I was watching something else right now. Like,
Right.
but story's not first right now for them.
Yeah.
And when story is not first, you have nothing.
Yep, exactly. I can't wait to get more into this guy in the future
Yes.
episodes. Um, they did the right thing early on with having this part be like the now what was your theory on like his suit, by the way? This is like a random thing because I used to think like maybe wears black like this. My theory was that he was running really fast and maybe the suit got burnt. Like what that was just my head canon. I don't think they ever really addressed
Oh,
it.
like why it was charred like that.
Yeah.
Um, it was, I think for me in my head canon, looking back now, at some point him and Black Lightning cross paths or something, and he just got fucking burnt.
That'd be hilarious. Actually, there's a moment in the future where he talks about like oh yeah, like I've met your cousin talking to Supergirl. He's like he's fast, I'm faster, like implying that like
Yep.
he killed that version of like Superman in that reality because I think it's a different reality version of the Reverse
Correct.
Flash. Or no, it's that he's the one we know, but he's like in a different universe aligned with like some of the Earth X versions, I think.
Yes, and he's not a time remnant,
Yeah,
right?
it gets weird,
Yes.
guys. We'll get into that shit next time. But yeah. Anyway, I'm Alex,
I'm Will.
and we will see you in the Speed Force.